In this video, we'll be actually seeing a tutorial problem that was asked for university based on recoverability and cascadeless schedule, the topic which we just saw. So, given a schedule, you may be asked to justify or determine whether it is recoverable, it is cascadeless, or how you came to that conclusion. You may be asked to justify all those things. So in this is the university question. The schedule is given like this: R1 of X, R2 of Z, R1 of Z, R3 of X. So as you can see, there are not two transactions but three transactions that are involved. 1, 2, 3. Then X is there, Z is there, Y is there. So it is going like this. There's a C1 over here, which means the first transaction is committed. C3, which means the third transaction is committed, and C2, which means the second transaction is committed. So all these details are there in the schedule given to you. Now it is up to you to find whether the schedule is recoverable or the schedule is cascadeless. Now one easy way to solve this is, like, if such a problem is given, like, one thing is you can look one by one, like, say, when is the schedule said to be recoverable? It is said to be recoverable if, like, a transaction that reads an item from another transaction that has written it, and that transaction should have committed before this transaction. So just go back to the definition and see whether that was clear. So that is how we can say whether a schedule is recoverable. So with that definition, we can actually look into this problem and see whether that is met. So but looking into this long sequence of operations is difficult. So what an easy way to solve the problem is, and we can also once again revise all the sorry, all the terms like recoverable, cascadeless using this problem. So once you get such a schedule, it would be good if you can write it in a tabular form. So let's see how to write that in a tabular form. So the first you need to identify how many transactions were there. So since 1, 2 and 3 is mentioned, there are three transactions. So there will be three columns: T1, T2, T3. Let's see how we can write the rows of the transaction. So the first operation is R1 of X, that is the first transaction is writing X. So R of X would be coming in T1. The next is R2 of Z, second transaction is writing Z. So RZ would come over here. So that is how after this came in the second row. Then third row, R1 of Z is a third operation. So R of Z would be coming under T1 because it belongs to the first transaction. Then we have R3 of X. So that is how R of X came under R3. Then we have R3 of Y, and so R of Y came in the same row because over here after this the next operation belonged to the next transaction. In this case both of them belong to the same transactions, so you could write it as a single row or two separate rows also, no issues. So the next one, that is W1 of X, is the next operation, so it comes under the first transaction. So W of X, then it commits. Note T1 commits over here, so C is written over here. After that W3 of Y, it comes over here, under T3, W of Y comes, then it commits, so C comes over here. T3 commits, so C comes over here. After that R2 of Y, that is R of Y over here, W of Z, W of Y, and this second transaction commits. So this is going to be the order. So once this is in tabular form, it is easy for you to verify based upon the rules whether it is recoverable or cascadeless and all those things. So the first thing asked was whether this is recoverable. Now a schedule S is recoverable if no transaction T in S commits until all transactions that have written an item that T reads have committed. So how to look that? Say, we can take one by one the operations. So T1 is writing on X. We just need to see whether any other transaction has written on X before that. No, so there won't be any issue. Over here Z is being written, no other transaction has written Z before that, so no issue. Over here Z is being read, no other transaction has written Z, so no issue. Over here X is being read, no other transaction has written over x. Note this T1 is reading x, T3 is also reading x, but that is not an issue. This we need to, it is a conflict only if some other transaction has written x and we are trying to read that x after that. So that is where this conflicting operation comes in. We need to check whether there are any conflicting operations. We are reading y, no other transaction has written y yet, so no issues. We are reading x, so we are writing x over here, but no other transaction has written x before, so no issues. And this transaction is getting committed. Okay, well, fine. Now coming to this write y, we need to check whether any other transaction has written y before. No transaction has written, so no issues. And this is getting committed. Now over here we are reading y actually. When we are reading y, we need to check whether this y was written by some other transaction. That is the first check we need to make. So y was written by T3. The third transaction had actually written y and we are reading that. So that is where the definition comes into. So now what the definition for recoverable schedule says, if we are reading an operation that was written by some other transaction. So we are reading y that was written by T3. If so, the transaction that reads y here is T2. If so, T2 should commit only after T3 commits. Now in this example, T3 had committed over here and T2 commits after T3. So this won't violate that recoverability property. So that is okay. So in that case, it is recoverable. We can check the rest of the things also. W of Z. Had any operation written Z? No transaction had written Z, so no issues. Only if there is a write by some other transaction, it is a conflict. Now write Y. Yes, when we are writing on Y, yes, this transaction had written Y. So we need to check whether we are committing only after this has committed. Yes, we are the third this transaction that is writing on Y that was written by some other transaction T3 is committing. This T2 is committing only after T3 has committed. So we have made sure that this satisfies the recoverability statement. So this is a recoverable schedule. Now the next thing asked in the question was whether is the schedule cascadeless or it avoids cascading rollback. Now the definition for cascadeless was like event to read a transaction, event to read an item that was written by some other transaction, that transaction should have committed. I'll repeat, event, say if event for this read to occur, actually if we are reading y and this y was written by some other transaction, in this case this y is written by T3. So if T2 needs to read y and that y was written by some other transaction T3, that T3 should have committed, only then we can even read y. In this case it is satisfied, like we are reading y only after T3 has committed. Now T3 had written y, so these two were conflicting actually. So T3 is actually has actually committed, only after its commit we are reading y. So there is no issue, it is not violating the cascadeless property. With Z there was no write Z over here anywhere. With y there was a write over here, but we are committing, or this write is performed only after T3 has committed. So there is no issue over there also. So and finally T2 commits. So both the properties, that is this T2 is getting committed only after T3 is getting committed. So it doesn't violate recoverability property. It is recoverable schedule and we are even reading this y and writing y only after this T3 has committed. So that is also that satisfies the cascadeless property also. So that is how you need to evaluate by such a sequence of schedule by drawing a tabular column and cross-checking with the definition. Hope it is clear to you. And this is how you can justify the same in sentence. If you doubt how to justify it in sentence, this is the answer key for the same. So you may pause the video and read the answer key also. So hope it is clear to you how to check whether a schedule is cascadeless and recoverable. Now to add on, if it was asked whether it is strict schedule. Now what does a strict schedule means? Even to perform a write, we need to wait for the transaction to this transaction, that is even to perform a write on y. we need to wait for this T3 to have committed. Now this transaction is actually strict also, because we are actually writing on Y only after this T3 has committed. So this is strict also. Now once, if you find that a transaction is strict, it is by default going to be cascadeless and recoverable. So you can think in that way also. So hope this problem is clear to you. Thank you.